Hey guys, what's up? So we've got a brand new set of cards for an archetype coming out in Phantom of Rage, which is the new core booster set. It's called the Souten style, or the Souten Fists. Souten, just as a note, is something like Twin Heavens, but since it's being a form of martial arts, they're keeping it within the Japanese theme. The first card is Yoube of the Souten Fists. It's a level 4 light warrior effect monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense. You can only use this card's names first and second effects once per turn each. You can target one Souten monster you control, destroy it, and if you do, add one Souten spell from your deck to your hand. 2. If a face-up Souten fusion monster you control that was fusion summoned by using an effect monster is destroyed by battle, or your opponent's card effect, and this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. So the first part of this, the first effect enables you to actually search for your certain spells. This helps to add to your consistency. I haven't looked at the other cards, this is just kind of my fresh reaction to them. It's got a decent stat line for a level 4, and of course being able to recover this, it's obviously a fusion based deck. Being able to recover this card from the graveyard is also useful to maintain that kind of advantage. It says here that the kanji means bear, but it can also refer to someone who is valiant. That's why the name is that. The next card is called Cocokoo of the Souten Kicks. It's a level 3 light warrior effect monster with 800 attack and 2000 defense. You can only use this card's names first and second effects once per turn each. 1. If a face-up Souten monster you control, except Cocokoo of the Souten Kicks, is destroyed by battle or card effect during your opponent's turn, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can apply this effect. Destroy one Souten monster you control, and if you do, special summon one Souten fusion monster from your extra deck. 2. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Souten trap from your deck to your hand. So this card complements the other card because it's able to actually search for your trap, whereas the other one searches for a Souten spell. It's also useful to bring itself out and also extend your advantage by being able to actually bring out one of your fusion monsters. You can essentially just trade this card in because its stat lineup isn't that great for something a lot more powerful. Or, of course, if your opponents are going into their turn, and at least you can be able to maybe block some damage as well, worst case scenario. The kanji for this means swan, but it is also referring to someone with great aspirations. So the first of the fusion monsters is Gaia of the Souten Fists. This is a level 6 light warrior fusion effect monster with 2100 attack and 1500 defense. It requires 2 Souten monsters as fusion material. You can only use this card name's first effect once per turn. 1. If this card is special summoned, you can target one attack position monster your opponent controls, destroy it. Also, this card cannot attack directly for the rest of this turn. 2. While you control a Souten fusion monster that was fusion summoned using an effect monster as material, Souten fusion monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense. So this isn't a difficult to summon card, although saying that we only have 2 basic Souten monsters there. The others are all extra deck. Ones that could be a little bit of a problem. Obviously, we should be getting more support from that than just these cards, but this is just what we've got to work with. The special summon effect is okay, but the downside of course, some monsters are immune to just destruction effects, especially some of the higher level or higher ranked boss monsters. And it does trade off, so you can't attack directly for that turn. The attack and defense boost is minimal. I mean, this will make it a 2400 attack monster, and it this boost affects your other Souten monsters' fusions, but other than that, this general increase in damage is very minimal, so I don't know how relevant that card is going to be. The next card is Gaia of the Souten Kicks. This is a level 5 Light Warrior Fusion effect monster with 1700 attack and 2100 defense. Again, it needs 2 Souten monsters as its fusion materials. You can only use this card name's second effect once per turn. 1. If a Souten fusion monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy one other Souten monster you control instead. And 2. During the main phase, if you control a Souten fusion monster that was special summoned using an effect monster as material, as a quick effect, you can target one face-up monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, negate its effects until the end of this turn. So this card isn't, again, difficult to summon. Stat line on it is not great either. The first effect actually protects your other fusion monsters that are Souten by actually getting rid of one of your other cards. It reminds me a little bit of how the Six Samurais work. I can't remember, I think they were mostly battle protection. And you can trade in one of your other cards, Six Samurais, to protect a different Six Samurai, and that's kind of interaction this card is having. The quick effect is actually quite decent, because the likelihood is your opponent will be running extra deck monsters. Most people do. And if your opponent has cards, you can disrupt them through this as a quick effect. I would say it's quite useful for the time being. And this is, I think, the main boss monster. This is Cocokoo, Heavenly General of the Souten. It's a level 8 Light Warrior Fusion effect monster with 3000 attack and 1700 defense. It requires Yoube of the Souten Fists and 2 Souten monsters. You can only use this card's name's third effect once per turn. 1. If this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. 2. At the end of the damage step, at the end of damage calculation that this card attacked, you can return one monster your opponent controls to the hand. And 3. When a spell or trap card or effect that targets this card on the field is activated, and you control 2 or more fusion monsters as a quick effect, you can negate its activation. So this card is a little bit more difficult to bring out because it requires a specific card plus 2 additional Souten monsters. The first effect is is okay for what it needs to be doing. The focus is very much battle orientated within the deck. So this is a kind of a necessary effect. The second effect I really enjoy because there are cards that obviously protect themselves from being destroyed in battle. So you can actually get rid of those cards once this card attacks by returning them either to the extra deck or to the hand, whichever the card came from. And actually summoning multiple of the fusion monsters isn't that difficult. So being able to negate an effect per turn is quite decent for what it needs to do. This is kind of a staple within most archetypes. They need some kind of negation, and inbuilt within the boss monster is a good way of getting that out. It does say here that the name is a reference to more Chinese and / Buddhism stuff. But basically, Yoube's ascended to the mastery of the Souten style, so this is Yoube in its strongest form. It also says that Congo can mean diamond, thunderbolt, or Vajra, an unbreakable substance in Hinduism / Buddhism, but it's also a Buddhist symbol of an indestructible truth. So this is the first spell card we've got. It's called Souten Calling. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. Discard one card, and if you do, special summon as many Souten Spirit tokens. These are Warrior Light Attribute level 2, with 0 attack and 0 defense as possible to your field. Then you can apply the following effect up to 2 times. Fusion summon one Souten fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. For the rest of this turn, you cannot tribute tokens you control or special summon monsters from the extra deck, except fusion monsters. And during this turn's end phase, destroy all tokens you control. So this actually is quite a good card, considering it treats itself as a Souten card. You're able to use this to fusion summon your monsters. Discarding it for a cost is 1 card is not a problem. Being able to generate these tokens, even if they can't be linked away and have to be specifically used for fusions, this card also enables the fusion summon of a monster, so you don't actually have to rely on something like polymerization to kind of have that in your hand as well. This kind of does all in one. Of course, the whole idea is to kind of use up those tokens as much as possible, because at the end of the turn, you lose whichever tokens are left. That's not that big of a problem, considering that you'll probably use them to bring out multiple fusion monsters in the same turn. And I would compare it to things like there's a couple of cards such as Soul Charge, and there's like a larval version as well, which actually I think it's called Rekindling, which supports kind of like mass summoning from the graveyard. So I compare it a little bit to like how beneficial those cards are. The next card is 2 as 1. This is their obligatory field spell card. You can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. You can only use the card's second effect once per turn. 1. When this card is activated, you can add 1 Souten monster from your deck to your hand. And 2. If you control a Souten effect monster, you can special summon 1 Souten spirit token with the same stats. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from your extra deck for the rest of this turn, except fusion monsters. So the whole purpose of this card is you get an instant search from when it's activated. This reminds me of things like Diagram, which is able to kind of search out your true kings. This is able to kind of generate the effect if you control a Souten effect monster. So you can obviously use both the Souten effect monster and the token to fusion summon more monsters. It says here that the kanji for this is more Buddhism references. For Om / On. For Western folks, it would be comparable to Alpha and Omega, making the red and blue fusions something like Armor Alpha and Armor Omega. The next card is Souten Exorcism. This is a quick play spell card. You can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. 1. Target 1 Souten monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls. Destroy them. Then, if you destroyed a Souten fusion monster you controlled, you can apply one of these effects. You can either draw a card or banish 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. This is good for since it's a quick play spell card, if you know you're about to lose one of your cards, you might as well destroy it yourself rather than your opponent. And of course, if it's the fusion, you're able to gain that additional effect. Depending on your situation, you might either prefer drawing a card or just getting rid of one of your opponent's more difficult cards that might reoccur within the graveyard. It's a good out to a lot of things and is quite versatile for what it needs to do. It says here that the name's apparently a fair bit of Buddhism references, so they simplified the meaning to make it easier to understand. The next card is Souten Returns. This is a normal trap card, and you can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. 1. Target 1 Souten monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Then, if you special summoned a monster with an original level of 4 or less, you can special summon 1 Souten spirit token with the same stat line. That's actually quite decent. This is their equivalent to, say, Call of the Haunted, and you bring back a token as well. It means you can use it to fusion summon into one of your fusion monsters. And the final card is Souten's Duty. This is a normal trap card. You can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. During the main phase, banish 1 Souten spell or trap from your graveyard, except Souten's Duty. This card's effect becomes that card's effect when it activates. This reminds me a little bit of one of the spellbook cards. It's able to actually banish that card and actually treat itself as that card with that effect for that turn. Being able to use this during your opponent's turn means you can actually use, say, the token generating card, just even to protect your life points or whatever you need to plan. Of course, as the archetype expands and there are more spell cards or trap cards introduced in the game, the more likely you are to be able to kind of abuse this card. I wouldn't sleep on this card. It's not that powerful as of yet, but I'm sure in the future it will be. What do you guys think of this archetype? Is it something you're interested in playing? Can you see any relevance to the meta in the future? Or is this just kind of an archetype that you can see kind of falling off the face of the earth? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.